So our next speaker is from Ireland. He's Donncha Cróinín from the Foras na Gaeilge. He's chief terminologist there. And the title of his speech is The Irish Terminology Committee and European Terminology.
Thank you. I'd like to first of all talk about the history of the Terminology Committee. It's quite a long history. It goes back to the turn of the 20th century, at a time when Irish was suffering severe impoverishment, a loss of ranges and concepts with industrialisation, serious population loss in certain parts of the country, particularly the then Irish-speaking area known as the Gaeilge, and also just general eradication of terms, eradication of concepts, and so on. With the formation of the Irish state, as you may know, Irish and English have equal status as official languages. This includes the opportunity for education through the medium of Irish language, and of course the ability to take state languages in Irish or English. So therefore there was a demand for terminology related particularly to education. So in 1929, the then Department of Education established the Terminology Committee. And I suppose the title committee is interesting here because it was a committee of the Department of Education. It was not a freestanding body, but it was a part of the Irish Department of Education. Now, the committee continued with its work up and down in terms of the volume of terminology it was creating, and fell sort of lapsed for a while in the 1950s. But in 1963, there were major curricular changes, particularly in primary and post-primary levels. Apologies for the spelling error there, that's post-primary. And as a result, around 1968, 1969, the committee was re-established, mainly to provide vocabulary terminology for the syllabi and the curricula that were required at Irish level for both primary level and secondary level. The committee continued as a part of the Irish Department of Education until 1999, with the formation of cross-border bodies as a consequence of the Good Friday Agreement. So Foras na Gaeilge was established in 1999 to promote Irish throughout the island of Ireland. So it is a cross-border body. It has a remit both in the Republic of Ireland and in Northern Ireland. And the Terminology Committee, along with a number of other committees and organisations, moved into Foras na Gaeilge at that time. The committee's remit is to develop, approve and provide authoritative standard Irish terminology to support the Irish language as a means of communication in a modern society. So it covers quite a bit, as you can see. The section staff, we have two members of staff at the moment. There's myself and my assistant terminologist, but we function mostly as the secretariat for the Terminology Committee itself. I'll tell you more about that on the next slide. Our annual budget, excluding staff costs, is about €115,000 per annum. And this goes primarily to servicing external contracts. And again, I'll tell you a bit more about those in a short while. Within Foras na Gaeilge, we are part of the directorate, which is responsible for publishing, lexicography and terminology services. Again, quite a bit cover there, and some of those will be mentioned later on. The committee itself has 30 members, This has only just been increased. We had an allowance for 22 to 23 members, and our workload has increased significantly over the past year. And so a motion was passed to allow us to have 30 members on the committee. Their current term of office extends to March 2020. We don't have elections as such to the committee, but we did have recently where we extended our numbers, and we had names proposed and voted upon and then approved by the board of Foras na Gaeilge. The committee has a chair and a deputy chair, and the current chair is well known to many of you, I'm sure, Gaeilge, who's here with us today. We also have quite a large number of ex officio members, and they're chosen for their relevance as stakeholders. For example, we have ex officio members from the staff of the new English-Irish Dictionary, a major project also undertaken by Foras na Gaeilge. We have members from Angoom, who are the publishing branch of Foras na Gaeilge. They specialise in publishing textbooks for primary and second level, and also for publishing books of general interest, particularly for young children. We also have members from CCEA, which is the body responsible for the curriculum in Northern Ireland. We have representatives from the two large providers of third level education through Irish in the Republic. That would be Acadh Ollscoileachta na Gaeilge in Galway and Fiontar DCU, and I think some of their members are here today, in Dublin. We have representatives from two government departments. The government department which oversees Foras na Gaeilge is the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht. They have a representative, and also we normally have a representative from the Inspectorate of the Department of Education and Skills. As well as that, we have a representative from the Irish Parliamentary Translation Service, and also from three major EU institutions, the Council of Ministers, the Parliament and the European Commission. Where necessary, we form subcommittees with subject specialists, and we also have a wide range of subject specialists available and willing to give their expertise for consultation. The work is entirely voluntary, apart from, I think, a free lunch and maybe some travel expenses. And as I said, we seek advice where necessary from external experts, and we set up specific subcommittees similar to the work being done for BASC. Our methodology generally starts with inquiries. Now, the inquiries can come in a number of ways, but our largest source of inquiries at the moment is from the public. We then research the term and the concepts. We look for the terms available in other languages. We make a staff recommendation. These recommendations are placed on an extranet for viewing by the members of the committee. They're generally placed about a week or a week and a half before monthly meetings of the committee. We then have approximately 10 meetings per year where all the committee, or as many as possible, come together to discuss the terms. If there are no notes written on the extranet, i.e. there are no adverse comments written relating to the recommendations by the staff, they are generally regarded as having been passed and approved by the committee. We do form ad hoc subcommittees depending upon the demand, depending upon the subject area, and these may last for a number of months, maybe even a number of years in certain cases. On the approval of the Quiste Terminologist, the Terminology Committee, the terms are published as official on our website, www.terma.ie. We do have extraordinary meetings as necessary, and some of these may relate to specific areas of terminology, but they may also relate to particular challenges. For example, we've had certain changes in official Standard Irish over the last number of years, and these have caused a number of challenges for the Terminology Committee. An example of a recent query, I think it was last year, was this thing. one of these things. I don't know. Probably if you have kids, you'll understand what these are. These are fidget spinners. And, our methodology would have included, looking up words for spinners, looking up words for things that spin. And then, of course, just looking up for, or just from our own experience, including words like, fidgeting or, messing around and all that sort of stuff. And I think our first proposal was something along the lines of cashel gyodum. Now, cashel, C-A-I-S-E-A-L, is a word for a spinning top. So it's a word inexistent in Irish for a toy, like a top or a spinning top. And gyodum just means restlessness or fidgeting or messing around or something like that. The problem with that, of course, when it came to the committee was they all thought, yeah, it's elegant, it's beautiful and everything like that, but how many kids speaking Irish these days would have a clue what it meant? And, there's a lot of discussion goes on at these meetings. There's a lot of toing and froing. And in the end, the sample or the version chosen was Rohan Mera. Rohan just means a wheel or a capstan. And in particular was recommended by somebody with a nautical background who said it's generally a very specific term for a specific type of wheel. Mera just means belonging to the finger. And we have found it in use. We've found that, kids straight away, if you ask them, about toys, and if you ask them, do they know what a Rohan Mera is, straight away they just put up their finger and start doing that. So it's fairly obvious that it has acceptance. The question about Brexit, I haven't got a slide to show you the progress of words here, but Brexit has been accepted and recommended as the official term for Brexit. But again, the question here is the usage and whether or not it will be accepted, because already, almost as soon as the word Brexit came into use in English, there was a term created which was brat imacht, which is brat is the preface for British or relating to Britain or British, and imacht just means going, departure, exit. And it has gained quite some currency, particularly in the news media. So we may end up putting Brexit as the official term, but brat imacht as in use. That remains to be seen. We currently have 2 external contracts relating to the development of terminology and relating to the publication of terminology. The largest contract we have at the moment is with our colleagues in Fionthar DCU, and that's for editing and development work on the terminological database and the website www.terma.ie. The second is a smaller one, it's relating to the hosting. And we have a current software agreement with Fionthar as well, relating to the software used to develop the website, terma.ie. Our priorities for the monthly meetings, as I said, our largest amount of queries to date would be inquiries from the public. The public can be anybody. It can be just interested parties, general people who have interest in Irish. It can be teachers, can be students, it can be school inspectors. The public service, who have certain mandates in relation to publication and availability of services in Irish. We do have a specific role in relation to the EAFT terms. I'm not going to speak an awful lot about that because I know that my colleague Violina will be talking after me about that, and also there are some posters, and I'll mention those now in a minute. We also have editorial questions which would be relating to, issues that arise depending upon the most recent decisions at meetings, but also relating to, for example, the revisions in standardised Irish and the implications they have for the terminological database. And what will become, and has very rapidly become our largest customer now, which is the terms from the New English-Irish Dictionary. Because New English-Irish Dictionary has finally completed its online publication, but is now currently working on preparation of a printed version for the year 2020. And as part of that work, there's a huge amount of editorial work, but as part of that, we have to ensure consistency between our terminological database and the terms appearing in the New English-Irish Dictionary. So there's a large amount of work ongoing at the moment relating to that. With relation to EAFT, which I just mentioned, I'm not going to go too much into our work with EAFT because I know that there's a poster by Garo Danuna. It's in this session. It's in session number 1 on 10 years of the EAFT terminology project. So it's available to view outside. And also, I think in session 2, Brian and Michal have a session on the new platform which will be used for our new version of the database, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. The questions of editing arise frequently, and they do form part of every meeting we have of the Terminology Committee. So just very rapidly, you can see that the sort of things we're talking about would be differentiation, i.e. different concepts with the same term, different terms for the same concept, different versions of the same concept associated with different terms, and terms out of use or faulty for some reason, which can and does happen. Also, questions relating to the living language and the written language. And I mentioned Brexit earlier on, and that may arise there where we find that people are using Brathimocht, whereas in the written language we find that people will use the correct term Brexit. Terms based on native Irish items versus loans. This isn't so much an editing area as a question that does come up frequently at the monthly meetings, whether loans should be used. Now, we have very well-defined rules for loan words and for transliteration, etc. But the question will always arise, and we do have native Irish speakers on our committee who are very good at giving advice on acceptability or otherwise of loans, but also acceptability or otherwise of native Irish items, whether or not they would find general acceptance among the population, which is not necessarily a native Irish-speaking population anymore. The largest number of Irish speakers nowadays is outside the native Irish-speaking area. A lot of them would be in the cities. So while a term may appear very elegant to a native Irish speaker, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll have acceptance. Foreign spelling and grammar will come into play, of course, and also just spelling, punctuation, and grammar in general, where we might notice something that raises questions. As part of our contracts for 2017-2020 and our development work, we're in collaboration with Fiontar DCU developing a new editing system which is open source, and as I mentioned, there is a poster on that. I think it's session 2 if anybody's interested in that. This involves as well a redesign of the public website, so the terma.ie that Henrik already showed will change in its design. There's a lot of work has gone into that. That's scheduled to launch in the first quarter of next year of 2019, so hopefully you'll get a chance to have a look at it. And as well as that, there is a redesign of the actual database itself so that it is based on international terminological standards, and that includes, as much as possible, one term, one concept. And we also hope to have, over the next year and a half or so, special meetings relating to the implications of the new official standard and retrospective editing if necessary. Apologies for, I'm not going to apologise for having an Irish title on this. I forgot to translate it. It means internal development. We're talking about a publicity campaign focused on secondary schools. Now, they are already one of our largest users, but we do feel that certain parts of the educational system could use our resources more. Social media, where we have and will develop our presence on Twitter and Facebook and possibly Instagram. And then international, without the A, links in terminology with, for example, Scots Gaelic, other lesser used languages, international organisations, and all of this, of course, unfortunately, does depend on staff resources and budgets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Henry.
So this is very interesting compared to what we just heard about the Basque Terminology Commission. I was wondering about the use of automatic tools, for example, measuring success. We saw that this is being used in the Basque. Do you have plans to investigate the success of implementation of terms automatically?
Long-term, yes, Henrik, but not short-term, because again, it does depend on resources. But one of the things we've thought about is that if we have the ability, for example, to take in students on work in the committee itself, who may be linked with universities, that we would be able to establish projects like that, but not in the immediate 1 year, 2 year short term.
Thanks.
Any other question? Yes?
Hello. You said that the general public can send their inquiries into you, and I assume that also you get inquiries from translators.
Yes.
Do you have a problem with the types of queries that are sent into you, and the termhood, if you want, of what's sent in to you? Public sending in inquiries about general language, or the titles of documents, or that kind of thing. And how do you have the biggest question is, how do you deal with them afterwards?
You don't want to describe it as a problem as such, but they do provide challenges. There's no doubt about that. I mean, for example, in the general public, you would include translators as well. And some translators you'll find will be working on extremely esoteric, maybe obscure chemical documents or something like that. We can't really reject those terms, and so it does form part of the monthly work. So we have to provide those terms as part of the monthly work, and they are viewed by the members of the committee, and they are approved. Now, as I said, we do have long established rules for example, for transliteration and so on. And a lot of the new chemicals that are coming on board, there might only just be one prefix or something like that that involves a change, but we still have to put them through the process. In terms of titles of documents that might be legislation, for example, we really just take what we get from the Parliamentary Translation Service. So, if they have given a translation of a title of a document or a title of a body or anything like that, we accept that without question in general. And we do have a member of, as I mentioned, of the Parliamentary Translation Service on our committee. So we can generally accept that. In terms of general material from the public, if we don't regard it as a term, we'll tell them that. But if it's likely to be a term, well then, okay, we'll go ahead and just make our best effort.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.